Good morning on Fellowship Day 197. I come to you this morning not from the office, but rather on a crisp Glasgow morning with the sounds of car drones and clamouring rubber on my way to the office. One thing I've been thinking about this morning en route to the office is actually what I shared on yesterday's podcast, and that was asking better questions. But we've had several team conversations of late that warrant a second half of that to that same story, which is not simply asking better questions, but defining better problems. What do I mean by that? Well, in our case, let me give you an example before I generalise. In our team, a lot of what we do is to define software, to design software, to develop software, and to deploy software for specific end uses and end users. But the software that we design and is funded by this fellowship directly is more or less entirely within our control. We can write that software in whatever language we desire, with whatever structure we desire, with whatever user interface we desire, whatever function and functions and methods we desire, which is in part a wonderful thing to have that flexibility. But it's a double-edged sword, because with such flexibility, such freedom, such excuse to be insular, that you're often in danger of actually not engaging with those you're trying to serve. And sometimes you might therefore be solving a problem that isn't a problem, but rather just a solution. Looking for a problem. Again, caveats. And straw manning my own argument like I did yesterday. That's not to say that some solutions need to exist before finding a problem. But in many a case where we find ourselves is a situation where we are solving the wrong problem because we've not spent enough time defining the problem. So continuing this software example, what we do as a team, with myself leading that team, developers within the team, we will spend a long time talking about the history of our project, who we have helped serve with existing solutions, and ultimately what's to come next. What's the next branch of that software? What's the next module that needs to be bolted on to expand its capacity and function and end user base? But in that alone, that very niche example of thinking we're about to add on something else to this software, we've gone from having perhaps one introductory conversation about what needs to be done to 5 or 10 over the course of several weeks rather than several days. And the curious thing that's come out of that is that when, let's say, I write a document that defines the problem and others in the team write a similar document, these are not these are not molds that can be layered uniformly on top of one another. You can see immediately different interpretations of the same facts, of the same history, because each of us are coming to the same problem with different life experiences and, in this particular case, different levels of background knowledge. Because I've been involved with such projects from the very beginning, I know all the subtleties and nuance that perhaps I'm not so good at getting across to new team members, and they will come at the same problem with their own ideas and filling in the gaps of what I've not been able to tell them based on their own experience. And so it takes us a lot longer to define problems. Firstly, because we're trying to make sure that we're all on the same page of current understanding. But then on top of that, you've got the case where we're back to yesterday's conversation, asking better questions, because ultimately asking those better questions is what can lead us to understanding what problems genuinely have to be solved. So today, in follow-up to yesterday was considering how you might ask better questions of those you're trying to serve. Today, in complement, how can you consider how well you've defined a problem before rushing off to solve it? My hand's getting cold on this brisk morning in Glasgow. I hope you're having a great day. I'll see you again soon for another episode of the Read and Deed podcast. Thanks for being here.
If you like what you're hearing on the podcast, head over to the website where not only will you find the written blog versions of these podcasts, you'll find my leadership blog series, the Daily Thought series, and information about my book on managing the imposter phenomenon. We also have even more free resources and webinars linked to the YouTube channel. So head on over to dr-mark-reid.com. That's dr-mark with a C -reid.com. Thanks again.